Experts at the 1939 World's Fair were optimistic about the future of medicine, and they were right. We have made remarkable advances in health care over the past 50 years. On average, Americans now live 11 years longer than they did then.
Futurists are just as optimistic today. They tell us we are standing on the edge of breakthroughs that could help us live longer and more productive lives than any time in history.
Correspondent Morton Dean has that story. But he doesn't begin in the future or the present. He begins where we started tonight, in 1939, with one of that year's blockbuster movies, which in its own way posed some medical questions that may one day be easy to solve. But they were a wizard's work back then.
In The Wizard of Oz, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion each had a wish.
Sure to get a brain, a heart, a home, the knife. Oh, we're off to see the wizard.
A brain, a heart, and courage were easy to find when you followed the yellow brick road to Emerald City. But at the time of the New York World's Fair, the brain was largely a mystery, and stress would have been a big problem for the Cowardly Lion. One thing you could see was an artificial heart. Colonel Charles Lindbergh and Dr. Alexis Carrel's heart device became a main attraction at the fair. In the last 50 years, the heart has been at the center of many miracles and wonders in medicine, including a mechanical heart that really works. History was made in 1982 when Barney Clark received the first artificial heart. The man who designed that heart, a young doctor named Robert Jarvik, sees a future in which mechanical hearts would be very usual.
I think there'll be hundreds of thousands of people living with artificial hearts 50 years from now. And we talk about these more exotic things. But the artificial heart, as an example, is a very simple organ. It's a mechanical pump. An example here is one layout of a Jarvik 2000 heart inside this wireframe that represents the natural shape of the natural heart.
Only 10 years ago, Jarvik would have had to build a laboratory and complicated models just to accomplish the work now being done on one computer. The Jarvik 2000 heart will be implanted inside a real heart and designed to extend the patient's life for decades.
The key thing with the Jarvik 2000 heart compared to the developments with the Jarvik 7 heart, the key difference is that this is a miniature rotary blood pump. Biology didn't have the ability to make rotary devices, or we might have had birds with jet engines. Now we'll have something with humans that is more advanced than could be produced biologically. It's not impossible in 50 years that a pump like this could permit a patient to run marathons, maybe even win.
With or without artificial motors, the human body has been improved by leaps and bounds, added strength, endurance, and speed. And science will continue to improve on nature, developing other bionic body parts from kidneys and lungs to skin and bones. The tiny cochlea ear is already being used to enable deaf people to hear. Many blind people will be able to see thanks to a microchip attached to the optic nerve. And artificial limbs will be able to move on command from the brain. In his medical thriller, Coma, author Dr. Robin Cook looked at the darker side of medicine. But he sees a brighter reality for the future.
More people will have a longer, better life. Not that it will be that much longer than the longest person who even lives today, but the quality of life will be a lot better. It will affect things like the chronic illnesses like arthritis.
By 2039, the number of people over the age of 65 will increase by 35%, and it will not be necessary to travel to another planet to feel like a kid at 80, such as these senior citizens in Cocoon.
Some symptoms like pain will be much, much more amenable to treatment, because that is one of the a major problem in medicine is handling intractable pain, for instance. And that will be something that I believe will be able to be controlled.
Doctors will also be able to rely on swift, one-stop diagnostic machines without radiation. Micro-robots, a fraction of the size of a dime, will clean the bloodstream and destroy viruses. Robots will also be programmed to perform surgery with precision and accuracy. Lasers will replace the scalpel for most surgical procedures. And through the magic of 3D video, doctors all over the world will be able to sit in on and learn about the most delicate microscopic surgery. But there will be one thing that will have the greatest impact on medical science: prevention.
Prevention will be the key situation with the new tools that are coming out of this kind of biotechnology revolution that we're undergoing.
This revolution is already taking form at research laboratories and hospitals looking into the future for alternative healthcare techniques, such as vitamin therapy for cancer. The effects of environment, nutrition, and lifestyle on our bodies are being explored. But the most exciting hope for the future lies in a phenomenon called the double helix. The double helix. Over the next 50 years, the road to discovering the cause and cure of an infinite variety of diseases and human defects will lie within this structure. It looks something like a Tinker toy. It's a model of the basic element of all human life, DNA. The National Institutes of Health have begun the biggest single medical research project in history to unlock and explore the mysteries of DNA. Heading the massive effort is Nobel Prize winner Dr. James Watson.
Our DNA world is a gold rush, and there's an awful lot of gold to be found. You know, if you could cut the incidence of cancer by half, you'd say, you know, you've done a lot. A lot of, you know, what we call genetic diseases. I mean, a lot of Down syndrome, any of sickle cell anemia, Tay-Sachs, muscular dystrophy, they're all due to the fact that one has inherited a gene which isn't quite perfect. And so you're going to be able to spot that the DNA isn't perfect. And a lot of people will be very pleased with that.
About the Human Genome Project, as it's called, Dr. Watson says we used to think our fate was in our stars. Now we know that in large measure, our fate is in our genes. An army of scientists around the world is now aiming at a cure for more than 10,000 diseases. Heading one team at the National Institutes of Health is Dr. Craig Venter.
It wasn't until the work of Dr. Watson we began to even understand the structure of DNA, the blueprint for living beings, whether it be plants, animals, bacteria, it doesn't matter. It's the blueprint of life. Contained in this DNA structure, in this sequence, is the blueprint for all living species.
We are all born with DNA, a set of instructions that make up the human being. We all have genes which determine our sex, size, coloring, intelligence. They can have an impact on behavior and even creativity, and they also carry our predisposition to inherited diseases. When scientists are able to decipher the complete language contained within our DNA, it will tell them everything about human life, everything from evolution to predicting and preventing disease.
In 50 years, it's certainly possible that all genetic diseases, or most of them, could be eliminated or treated very effectively. 500 diseases can be attributed to a change in a single gene. Now, those are going to be, in theory, amenable to gene therapy, where replacement genes could be given to those individuals to overcome the defect. We're going to be learning vast amounts of new information about biology of human beings that we have never even imagined before. And that information base is going to affect every disease across the board, whether it has a genetic component or not.
Even the common cold is likely to become a thing of the past, along with Alzheimer's disease, diabetes, schizophrenia, heart disease, hypertension, manic depression.
The information, it's going to come so fast. You know, the excitement of being a scientist is understanding how things work, where we come from, and how to affect it to make the world more positive. And we've never had such tools and such information. It's clearly the most exciting time in the history to be a scientist.
Are there any scientists who you can think of whose brain you might like to have? Ben?
Benjamin Franklin's. Albert Einstein. George Washington Carver's.
As you visit a science class, you can't help but wonder where the next Jarvik is, where the next Nobel-winning Watson is, perhaps right there. And is that the young mind that will find a cure for AIDS? If the trends hold true, and if the predictions are accurate, it will be an exciting time to be a scientist. No 50-year period has ever begun with so much promise for so much advancement and achievement in medical science.
And what about today's most virulent diseases, cancer and AIDS? Will they still be with us? Medical futurists tell us breakthroughs are always possible, but there are no absolute cures on the horizon. Still, we will almost certainly learn more about how to keep ourselves healthy, and that in itself will let us lead longer lives.
But it is not only our health we'll worry about in the future. We are already terrorized by crime in our city streets. Will it be even worse 50 years from now? And how will we respond? Tonight we have shown you how life may be better in 2039. When we come back, we'll take you to a much darker reality, a shadowy future there is still time to prevent.